Let's turn our attention to a coverage of the war in Ukraine, where the European Union has unveiled proposals for a sixth round of sanctions on Russia, including a ban on Russian oil imports by the end of 2022. The plans, which need member states' approval, also include sanctions on individuals, including those suspected of war crimes. The EU also pledged additional military support for Moldova amid fears what could spread to Ukraine's neighbor. Meanwhile, Russian attacks have killed 21 civilians and wounded 27 others in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. We have more in this report.
The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, unveiled a sixth set of proposed EU sanctions against Russia. Ms. von der Leyen said the EU would seek to end its dependency on Russian oil, a major source of revenue for the Kremlin. She said crude oil would be phased out in 6 months and refined products by the end of 2022.
Today, we are addressing our dependency on Russian oil, and let's be clear, it will not be easy, because some member states are strongly dependent on Russian oil, but we simply have to do it. So today, we will propose to ban all Russian oil from Europe. This will be a complete import ban on all Russian oil seaborne and pipeline, crude and refined. We will make sure that we phase out Russian oil in an orderly fashion, so in a way that allows us and our partners to secure alternative supply routes.
Sberbank, Russia's largest bank, and two others, Credit Bank of Moscow and the Russian Agricultural Bank, would be disconnected from the international payments messaging system, SWIFT. Three big state-owned Russian broadcasters, described by Ms. von der Leyen as mouthpieces that amplify Putin's lies, will be cut off from the EU on cable, satellite, and the internet. 58 Russians will also be sanctioned, including those Ms. von der Leyen said had committed war crimes in Bucha and conducted the siege of Mariupol. But there were no proposals to end the import of Russian natural gas, which analysts say EU members would find harder to replace with alternate sources. Like oil, gas is also a key source of income for Moscow. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has become the first world leader to address Ukrainian MPs since Russia invaded in late February, said Ukraine had proven military experts completely wrong.
And in this moment of uncertainty, of continuing fear and doubt about the future, I have one message for you today. Ukraine will win.
Meanwhile, Russian missiles struck 3 power stations late on Tuesday, causing blackout in the western city of Kyiv, the mayor said.
Let's get more insights as international constitution law expert Livingston Weche joins me from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, via Zoom. Good to have you join us.
Good afternoon.
I mean, there have been so much advocacy for this to happen, but this is, which is for Europe to win itself off Russian oil. But this is going to happen in the next six months. And for countries like Hungary and Slovakia, it is about a year or two. And the question really is, will this be enough?
Well, the situation in Russia is in Ukraine, rather, is a very unfortunate global condition, as we all can attest. There is an economic war arising from it now between the rest of the countries, particularly members of the NATO and the US, trying to cut off from Russian oil and their gas. And the implications are quite adversarial. The reason is because it's going to be impacting heavily on the Russian economy. But if you look at it from the flip side, Putin does not appear to be budging in the face of these economic sanctions, because they still have the confidence that China is by their side. Remember that in terms of geographical landmass, Russia is the biggest country on earth. And in terms of population, China is the biggest. And these are two very strong allies. the other side to also consider is the fact that the economic crunch that will be hitting Russia in the course of these sanctions will impact more on the innocent citizens of Russia. If you sanction Russia, it's not just the government that suffers, but the citizens themselves also suffer grievously. And what I have worried about is that Ukraine is almost destroyed. And if this war continues without leaders around the world calling themselves to a table to nip issues in the bud, Ukraine will become a country in the past, and that is not what the aftermath of the World War looked at in terms of how global peace can be promoted. So what we should be looking at,
if I may quickly just jump in here, because you talked about Ukraine, and the Ukrainian president has always said that, look, this has to happen because Russia continues to finance this war with proceeds from its oil, and that until Europe wins itself off Russian oil and gas, that Russia will continue to have enough finance for this war. But gas wasn't mentioned in this proposal. So how far-reaching is this for the war in Ukraine? I mean, for Russia, rather.
Let me tell you this. There is a Minsk agreement on the Donbas, Ukraine region that was binding Russia and Ukraine relationship prior to this time. And I think that agreement should be resorted to again. The view that Russia is depending on proceeds from this oil and gas to finance this war may be misleading, because there's so much conjecture, too much contradictions and mischief within the communication lines on this war. So if Zelensky is looking at that as a weapon to weaken Russia, I think he may not be totally correct, because Russia is also not foolish. They may have put all options on the table rather, to consider in the event where they are sanctioned in this manner, what will be the alternative. Don't forget that China is solidly behind Russia, and you can't rule that out because of China's global economic base. So that is not sufficient. My worry is that these sanctions are coming in the face of growing cases of mass deaths and destruction. Just not too long ago, we got a report on the destruction of about 3 power stations in the Lviv region, in the Lviv area of Ukraine. And you know what it means to destroy power stations, that you are generally and gradually turning Ukraine into extinction and to excommunicate them from the rest of the world. And neighbors of Ukraine are already under threats because Russia has issued this statement. So my submission is that leaders should ask questions. What does Russia want, so that Ukraine can live in peace with its bigger neighbor and protect and sustain the security and safety of its people? Because no matter what any leader is saying, Ukrainians are the ones dying, not British,
absolutely,
not American. And they should reach just for compromise.
And just like yourself, a lot of experts and analysts have said that this can only end through dialogue. Whether Russia is or Putin is interested in dialogue remains to be seen, but we do have to leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us, international constitution law expert Livingston Weche.
Thank you.